Hey, awesome to have you here today, Kristy. I'm so excited to have you share a little bit of your journey and what you're doing now. I know that we've had a few conversations recently and over the last few months about some changes that have been happening in your business, and
Yeah.
it's super exciting, super fun. So I want you to just maybe share what is happening for you right now in your business. Where is Kristy Rackham?
Wow. Right now I'm really excited actually because I've got a lot of brand new content that I'm starting to get out into the public. So what I do is I'm an energy mastery mentor and a holistic nurse, but I actually run online group coaching training programs in energy mastery, which might be something a little new for some of the listeners.
It's
But
It sounds really cool. I love the idea
yeah,
of energy mastery, but what does that actually mean? Like, I remember we've done a little bit of work together, and I
sure.
remember other times you've talked about overcoming overwhelm and anxiety and that kind of stuff,
Yes.
which is sort of very specific. And then the
Yes.
whole holistic nurse thing comes in, and you're like, we do it without meds or in conjunction
Yeah.
with other things.
Yeah.
So, energy mastery, how does that fit in?
Yeah, okay. Well, traditionally I was working with clients who fell through the gaps in the medical system. So I am a registered
Mm,
nurse, but I'm also an energy psychologist, energy psychology practitioner. So the two things I still do, use together to help people who get stuck in the gap. They're usually, we call them the in-betweeners. They're not sick, they're not sick enough to be going on medications, but they're worried that one day they might have to if they don't sort of start to harness their emotional state and their mental state. And they may also be experiencing pain and chronic fatigue, basically not operating as well as they know that they should be able to, right? So they're not sick enough to go to the doctor, but they're not well enough to be thriving. So I kind of work in the middle there to take people from a so-so kind of state into a success state. And whatever facet of life that is needing to happen is what we focus on. For people in the past, that has been a case of it might have been the energy and emotion side of things that they want to focus on. Their vitality is down, their emotions are labile, technical term, labile meaning erratic, okay, so up and down, wild swings. They may be struggling to be able to focus their energy and use enough of their vitality in their daily life. So I help them to basically unlock the stress skins and the fears and the doubts that people are sort of hampered by and living under. I help them to release all of that. I teach them lifelong tools that they can use. So once they've done the program with me and we've crushed a few of the major limitations, then they've got skills that they can use their whole life to keep on transforming their experience into something that's amazing, rather than just, oh God, I've got to get up again and deal with this daily life and it sucks and it's hard and I don't want to do it, right?
Yeah, it
So
sounds
yeah,
fantastic
yeah,
and
it's really
quite
exciting.
transformational. And one thing I like about that is that sometimes too, when we look at
Yeah,
massage is a very tactile therapy. It's a very physical therapy, but it
yes,
sometimes plays in the same space. It's like not
yeah,
necessarily for people who have chronic conditions and that kind of stuff, but it's for people who know they need to feel better physically in their
yes,
body. We hit that with
yes.
massage in some cases. And it's almost like you're doing the same kind of thing because you've got a background in massage as well, right?
I
So
do, yeah.
it's like that
10
same
years.
kind of attitude of let's take people who are maybe just not at their peak but feeling a bit so-so, not bad
Yeah,
enough to go to a doctor or some kind of serious thing,
that's
but
right.
just aren't at their peak, and let's see if we can find another way to be able to bring them forward. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And actually, when I was working doing massage as a holistic nurse, I have my registered nursing, but I also have a complement of alternative therapies underpinning all of that, which is why I can say that I'm holistic. But when I was massaging, I used to find that I was a physical therapist, but massage is so much more than physical therapy. Your nurturing and presence is just as healing as the hands and the actual action of massaging a knot out of somebody's back. And I think a lot of therapists maybe underplay the importance of your energetic state when you walk into a room. It's fantastically important to know what your energy is doing before you go into a treatment space, because you're influencing not just that person's body, but their mind, their emotions, and their literal energetic field. So it's actually really an important space for a massage therapist to hold for a person's healing. And if you're not quite sure of what the energy is doing in your own system, you're kind of ignoring a massive chunk of the therapeutic process when you walk into that space. The mind-body connection's not enough, right? Mind-body is great, and the medical system has done well to bring that attention to mainstream public. Mind-body, really important. But there's that third component, which is your energy system, which is equally as important, if not more so, in my opinion.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
And I know from talking to therapists quite often, some people probably do that a little bit intuitively. Like there is sometimes an awareness of that kind of the energy you bring reflecting back through clients and the healing that accompanies that.
Absolutely.
And some people get great results just literally without even knowing exactly what you're talking about. They're probably just putting that energy out there.
Yeah.
But I can also see that having an awareness of that and actually knowing purposefully how to use that as part of a treatment could be incredibly beneficial.
It's actually really, we talked about transformation just before. It's incredibly transformational when you actively engaging your energetic capacities in that space. You can do so much more. And the client feels different. I was talking to one of my clients who is a massage therapist recently, and she's just started working with me on consciously maneuvering energy within that space of massage. And she is a very intuitive practitioner. But now she knows what she's doing with her energy when she goes into that space. Her clients are coming out going, oh my God, what was that? That was incredible. That was amazing. So she's leveled up her treatment to a totally different place. She was already doing really well intuitively, but now she knows, it's taken it up a notch or three, Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Exciting. Yeah.
So is there something you could give massage therapists right now, like just one simple tip about how to improve their energy or how to increase that energetic connection?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really basic, but it is incredibly powerful to your energetic presence, is to take a minute before you go into the massage room. It's important to take a minute and actually center yourself in your heart. Tune into your heart and feel your heartbeat. Be really mindful. Use all of your senses to get in touch with your own body first. Feel yourself. Get a sense of what your emotions are doing. You might want to toss off something that happened earlier in the morning. So take a second to just breathe, center yourself in your heart, feel what your own body is doing, and then intend what you want for the next hour or so before you actually go into that space. What do you intend to have happen for that client, for that treatment? How do you intend to feel when you are actually doing that session and afterwards as well? But literally just breathe, take a natural break. There's always natural breaks in our day. There's the break between breakfast and coffee. There's the break between coffee and kids. There's the break before you start the car to drive off. Those natural breaks, just take a breath, tune into your body. It's really important. Very simple, but powerful.
That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah. It is really simple and quite powerful. And even not just as a therapist, but I can imagine that even
everybody should do that.
Yeah, it could be amazing in every person's day to have that level of centeredness and of mindfulness almost.
Yeah, it is mindfulness,
Yeah, I love that. Hey, we're going pretty deep pretty quickly. Maybe
we are.
Can we sort of, I know, right? It's awesome. But maybe we could loop around a little bit and just talk maybe about how you got to where you are. Because you mentioned you you're a registered nurse. And you've done a whole bunch of training in other holistic things as well. You've also mentioned you've got an online program and a few different bits and pieces, but I know you haven't always been in the exact place you are now. No. So maybe could you take us back to maybe when you first started this journey, what that was like, what the first things that you discovered were, and what that felt like as that was unfolding?
Wow. Okay. First is a long way back, James. I'm not that young anymore. However, I had experiences with energy when I was very young. When I think back, I was 5 and 6 when I started being aware of other things that people were saying that wasn't what was coming out of their mouths necessarily. So that's always been an inherent thing for me. But in terms of getting to here today, I guess we can go back 10 years. I'll limit it to 10 years just to try and keep the podcast into its nice, neat little container. But I guess I had all of this really come forward for me when I had my children. I went through a really, 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 really difficult patch. When I had my kids, I was in a difficult position to need to raise two babies within, my son was 16 months old, my baby was a month old when my partner left, and I was on my own without a job, without a partner, with two small babies, and postnatal depression. And actually, both my babies' births were traumatic, so I had a lot of post-traumatic stress from previous events in my life came forward and were brought to the front and center when I had my kids, which was like somebody had cracked the universe. You see when a stone hits a windshield and it just shatters.
Yeah.
That's what life was like back then. So I needed to find a way to keep going. So I had PTSD, PND, anxiety, two babies, sleep deprived, chronic fatigue, chronic pain for quite a number.
List of all the big ones.
It's
wow.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I call them the big four, actually. It's chronic pain, chronic fatigue, chronic anxiety, and chronic depression.
Gosh.
Winner. So it was pretty hideous, as you can imagine. And anybody who's even suffered one of those knows how terribly demoralizing it can be. But the thing was, I had this inherent reason to get the hell up and find a way out. And basically, who was going to look after my kids if I wasn't there? And at one point it did get real. It did get very real. And there was a question of whether I could keep going in this life or not. And I made the choice to stay for my kids. I still get emotional thinking about it a little, not because I'm still traumatized, but because I have this empathy now for the person that I used to be. I can view that person with compassion and empathy, and recognize that struggle and that pain and difficulty that my former self went through, and almost send her love back then in the past, But yeah, it was challenging. I was trying to still work because I needed an income. So I was doing the odd massage here and there around my kids, which was incredibly difficult. I wrote a book because I clearly had nothing else to do, right? The book was kind of like my therapy. It was a book on mindfulness and meditation before it was popular. And that book still governs a lot of what I teach today. Which
I've read, by the way, for people who are listening. It's a great book, really, really good.
Thank you. And it's kind of like a handbook, practical little handbook.
Yeah, and I've done a little bit of study into mindfulness and do a bit of mindfulness practice myself.
Yeah,
and I guess it was the perfect level for me. It was like some beginner stuff and then some that was a little bit more advanced, but very much just for people who are interested in learning a bit more about how it works in your brain, and then sort of looking at some of the other ramifications of it. It's an awesome book.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
And hearing about how that fits into your life story, I can see actually how that place that you were in has birthed this book. It's kind of got that vibe to it. So, yeah, well done for having that come out of such a difficult time.
Yeah, well, sometimes creative expression comes from the dark places at times. Not that the book is dark, but it definitely was my savior. I think mindfulness and meditation at that point were the things that got me stable to start with. And as I went along, I was able to tune more into my own needs and wants. I realized that my kids were also unwell. So we discovered we had a genetic condition that was also at play with my children and myself as well at that time. So it was a really fraught years up until about 2014. But during that, I was doing a lot of self-development because the doctors couldn't help me. They didn't know what to do. I was on antidepressants for a couple of years while I tried to stabilize the underlying root cause, right? The medications, they'll suppress everything. They'll suppress your mood, they'll suppress your mind, they'll suppress your body. They don't solve the problem that caused the issues in the first place.
Yeah.
So I promised myself when I went on the antidepressants that I was going to dig out the cause underneath all of that. So I started researching because the meds weren't doing it. The psychology was helping, but it was taking a really long time. And I was disconnected from my kids and I needed to reconnect. I needed to feel my kids, and they needed a mum who was actually connected to them for their own sake as well. So I researched quantum physics, energy psychology, epigenetics, cutting edge science, mind sciences, NLP, the works. I covered everything. And basically tried it all out on myself and came to a lot of processes that really worked and worked extremely effectively and extremely quickly, comparatively speaking, to the meds and the traditional psychotherapy.
Yeah, wow,
and a lot
great.
of it was much more practical, something tangible that I could use in my daily life instead of waiting for 6 weeks to get to the next psychology appointment. So that's where it all was birthed from, I guess. And I've just kept going from strength to strength since I discovered a lot of those processes and developed a lot of them myself as well using the research.
And what I love about that story is that you have had a time of definite challenge. Like there's so many things there coming up to you, more than probably most of the rest of us have had to face.
Sure.
But out of that has come the research and the motivation to be with your kids and to have a look at that has actually made this happen. It's like the person you are today, when you look at it, is because of those things that have been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such a powerful idea when we can look back at times of extreme challenge and see the learnings that have come from it. The growth that has happened in that place for you has been absolutely fundamentally amazing. So well done on pushing through and being committed enough to get to that place. Yeah, it's the honest truth. It's like the place you are right now, you're here because of that challenge. And it's not like you can never look at...
It's a vastly different place. It's hard to believe sometimes when I look at my life now, financially, back then, 10 years ago, I was on the poverty line, virtually evicted and looking to the salvos for food and pajamas for my kids. And now, I'm in a house that I can afford, all the bills are paid. My business is going from strength to strength and thriving and evolving itself. It's like it's become its own, entity, my business. It's
fantastic.
It's like my baby, and I'm watching it grow and nurturing that into new levels of expression. So I think that's what it's all about, is using whatever challenges you're faced with and knowing that in this dualistic society that we're in, we have dual living all over the place as humans. We've got light, we've got dark, night, day, men, women, we're in a dualistic society. But if you can see that the darkness has its equal and opposite lightness, and everything is like that. So if you have a challenge, a fundamental understanding of what I teach actually is that for as bad as it's been or is right now, the equal and opposite is actually also true. And so if you can flip your mindset to look at the other side of the coin, instead of looking at tails, look at the heads, just flick your mindset. And easier said than done. There are tools and techniques to do that. But it's such an important skill in resourcefulness to be able to see the other side of what's possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes belief takes a little bit longer to kick in.
Yeah, for sure. And it reminds me a bit of Tony Robbins. I remember I listened to a bit of Tony Robbins stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to one of his podcasts or something where he's talking about if you're in that mindset where you blame your parents for all the terrible things that have gone on in your life, and it's like I'm in this horrible place because I'm blaming my parents for all this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then he sort of flips that around and says, if you're going to blame your parents for all the bad stuff that's happening in your life, you've got to blame them for all the good stuff too.
Totally.
Like we all have good and bad things that have happened to us, and we have good and bad experiences right now. Absolutely. And when we focus in on the blame of the negative and that kind of stuff, we're kind of ignoring that there is always an opportunity or a possibility that comes out of that crisis or that challenge. Yeah. And it is incredibly difficult to hear that or see that when you're in it, especially if it's something as serious as what you've been through. And I know there might be people listening to this right now who are in that place of crisis and they're going, oh, come on, guys, like get over it. This is all just a bit woo-woo and whatever. But there will be other people who have come through the challenge and can recognise the truth of what we're talking about, that there is, it's not that it's easy, but it has growth attached to it.
Yeah, it's never easy, but it can be a lot easier than we make it. I think we make life a whole lot harder for ourselves than we need to. And most of that is because you simply don't have the tools and the understanding.
Yeah,
So
sure.
education is a cornerstone as far as I'm concerned. You have to educate yourself. And if what you're doing now isn't working for you, then educate yourself in other ways, because it might just be one little shred of that other way that opens up a whole new world of possibility for you, and unlock these innate talents that I believe we all have. Everybody has the capacity to have an amazing life, and I believe that with every shred of my being. Some people, I hope that nobody listening to this has had to go through what I've been through. I hope that everybody listening to this is where I am now, which is wanting to make life better and better and better and thrive rather than just, ho-hum kind of day. Acknowledging that everybody's at different points in their healing trajectory, or their thriving trajectory, let's call it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess we all have challenges, whether they are as serious as what you're talking about, or whether it's just like I've had a bunch of clients cancel and I'm frustrated. Like, we all have these little challenges and crises.
Yes, absolutely. And they're not smaller, by the way. Those little crises, losing clients for a week because they've cancelled all over the place, that's not a small thing. When you're in that and all of a sudden your income's just dried up, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's fight and flight.
Yeah, and they feel as important as we allow them to feel. If something is important to us in the moment, then it is important, right? That's the definition of what makes something important.
We can't minimise anybody's experience of what they're going through, because it is important to them. But it's also important to know that you can shift it.
Yeah. So for you, it sounds like you had very big crises, very real things happening. And part of it was the commitment to your children and to your own future that sort of shifted the tide a little bit there. But then there's been a bunch of tools that have actually helped to work along the way.
Totally.
Is it possible, do you have one tool, one of the more practical sort of things that you could share for people, no matter what size the current challenge is that they're going through? Is there something you could share that's like, you know what, if you were only going to do one thing, this would be the thing?
Can I do two?
Okay, I'll let you do two, just for you,
quick.
Kristy.
They're quick. Okay, so going back to the intention thing, you can look this up. There is an institute called the Heart Math Institute, or the Institute of Heart Math. Anyway, if you Google it, you'll find it. They teach a technique called heart breathing, and I integrate this through all of my training program as well, because it's so fundamentally practical. It doesn't feel practical at the time, and it takes some practice to get the hang of, but it's literally the process of touching your heart, moving your attention or your mindfulness into your heart, and then breathing in and out of the chest wall as if you're breathing in air straight through the chest wall and into your heart, and then breathing out like a cloud of crap, breathe the crap out from your heart. Everything you want to get rid of, you breathe that out in. I actually visualize a grey cloud. So if you can do that for approximately 3 minutes, and you can build up to 3 minutes. If 30 seconds is all you can handle, just start with, and sometimes it is. And even now, sometimes on a stressful day, I can only take 30 seconds, but I'll do 30 seconds every 15 minutes, just to get through. But it's fundamentally changing the neurology in your heart, because our heart actually has brain cells, not like the ones in our head, but it has its own neurites, they're called, thinking conscious cells.
Wow.
So when you focus on your heart, you're actively changing the neural pathways in your heart itself. And then your heart, it's been shown, this is all totally scientifically provable, it's now been shown that the heart thinks before the head.
Wow.
So the state of your emotions, the state of your feeling is absolutely imperative for changing your life. So if you did nothing else, just heart breathing as often as you possibly can through the day, you're changing your whole system. It's phenomenal.
That's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
and I'll pop a link to that Heart Map Institute in the show notes. So if people are listening and they want to click through, we'll find the right link and make sure that goes in there.
Yeah.
That's other thing. Awesome. Yeah. What's number two?
Really quickly. Number two, vocabulary. Change the words that you're using on a minute by minute basis, because what we say, the words that we speak, have a vibrational resonance. They have an actual energy pattern, and this can be proven too using some Japanese science, actually, that words have their own unique pattern. And so when you speak a word like I can't, you are solidifying that attitude and the energy pattern of it in your physical reality. And your cells read that and then they can't. They literally go, oh, we can't. Okay, we'll shut down. We won't bother. So our cells have consciousness too. So the vocabulary you use is really, really important. Things like eliminating, I can't, I shouldn't, or I should. What else? No. I went through a phase where I said yes to everything just to change the neural pathways. It was really scary, but fun. Yeah. And turn it around. I try is also a killer. I try. You're either doing something or you're not doing something. You're not trying. If you're trying, well, then you're not doing either not or, hang on, let me rephrase that. If you're trying, you're neither doing nor not doing. You're just kind of stuck in this weird limbo. So yeah, change your vocabulary.
How fascinating. I love that. And I guess like I've definitely experienced some of that more from, I guess, that sort of positive, or not positive psychology, but that idea of positive affirming words just literally make you feel better and help you to think better.
Yeah, they literally do.
Yeah, but hearing that it's got...
because they've got an energy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's something that I've never come across that idea before. So that's absolutely fascinating as well. I love it.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the work that you do right now, is this the kind of thing that you help people with?
Yes, absolutely. So we deconstruct a lot of the way that you're doing life right now across, I have a model called a me map, and we basically take you through the 6 petals of the me map and look at each facet and decide which one of those petals is most out of whack. And we start there. But it's a case of looking at your whole system. So we look at your mind, we look at your body, we look at your energy, and we start to adjust, make fine-tunements in how you're using those 3 elements that you're comprised of. And we look at where it's out of whack, the gap, right? So here's where you are and here's where you want to be. How big's the gap? What do we need to do to bridge that gap and move forward? So I do a lot of training in the fundamentals of energy mastery, how it works, why it works, the energy of emotions, the energy of your physical body, and start to help you to tweak those. Yeah?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
To get on top of that.
I think what I want to focus in on for a sec is that sounds like an amazing, amazing system that you've created. And I know we have worked with you a little bit on helping to develop that into the online version of the program that you've got there. And you did have a lot of that already there. Like, we can't take credit for the amazing work that you've had in your past, but we just sort of had that tiny little practical endpoint of bringing it online with you.
Yeah.
If there's other people who are kind of in a position where they know a whole lot of stuff and they know they're helping people, but they haven't got a framework for it and they haven't got a systemized way of making that happen, or maybe they haven't written a book. The kind of stuff that you've done seems to have taken you up a notch from someone who just has a whole lot of knowledge and is using it in a quite sort of practical, localized sense to say, I'm taking those next steps into becoming a leader in this space, into doing things like writing books, developing programs, and actually putting yourself out there as a practitioner, not just in a local sense, but in an online, bigger picture sense. What's the story behind that? What gave you that motivation, and maybe what were the steps that brought you through that process?
Yeah, look, when I came to you guys, I knew what I wanted, essentially, but I was insanely frustrated because I'd tried lots of different ways to share what I have, my knowledge, my expertise. And I'd only been sharing it, an hour here for $60 or an hour there for $60. I think at the time I was getting maximum 2 clients a week at $60 each, because I was trying to work around my kids' homeschooling as well. My kids with their special needs, I needed to homeschool them. So massage was, whilst I loved it, it was not practical for me. Not only was it not allowing me to reach more people with this information, but it was limiting my capacity to be with my children, which I really needed to do. And one of the biggest milestones for me was realizing that I could actually make money doing online programs, and that not just make money to my first pass was just get enough money to pay for groceries this week. That was my first little goal. It was like, all right, I've got to stop massaging and I need something else to earn the basics, to be able to feed my kids and give them the medicines they needed and put a roof over their head.
Yeah.
So in the start, that was what it was about, needing to be with my children. Me personally, having this absolute drive, this unrelenting drive to share what I knew. And I know there are tons of practitioners out there that have a wealth of knowledge, that are insanely qualified to teach on so many different facets of their business, and yet they're only teaching this tiny little portion of what they know and using a tiny little portion of it. So I want to show people that it's possible to take all of this, and it's not just what you know in your head, it's what you've experienced, it's your lived experience that's insanely valuable for other people. So for me, it was twofold: look after my kids and look after my own internal purpose for being on the planet, basically. Is what it comes down
fantastic.
to.
And it is all still focused around your clients. It's like everything that you're sharing is around the focus of them, the change that they can have, and the healing that you can bring them through that knowledge and that training.
Because we're all connected. And if I can play my role in life as effectively as possible, if I can be the best that I can be and shine as bright as I can shine, I can help other people to do the same. And there's this crazy ripple effect that's just amazing to watch. Like when you see a mother step into her power and overcome her limitations and her fears and her doubts and anxieties about what she is and what she's capable of being, it influences the kids, and then the kids have a better chance, and the children get to go, I'm getting tingles, then the children get to go out into the world and be the best they can be. And ultimately, and this is extremely idealistic, but I fully believe it's possible, when you change one person, then they go out and be the best they can be. This ripple effect changes humanity. So that's why I do what I'm doing.
I love it. You're giving me prickles. This is, absolutely amazing. I love that vision and I love that heart. And I know that a lot of the people that are listening to this will resonate with that.
Totally.
However they actually do that ripple effect, a lot of them, it is still physical therapy. It's manual work that they're doing with people.
And that's amazing too, because you can change a person by laying hands on somebody and relieving their pain. That's a massively important thing to do. Yeah.
And even as being a community person that is bringing healing, physical healing, mental, whatever, to the people around you, it is making a massive impact on the communities that we're part of. I absolutely love that.
Important mindset as well. You know, when I mentioned stopping for a minute, what's my intention before I move into my therapy? You know, being aware of the fact that you're not just going and treating a body, you're treating a whole person who's then going to feel better, and then they're going to move in a better way through their waking world, and they're going to interact differently with the people they come across at the local supermarket, and they're going to make a difference because they'll feel better too. So you're not just treating one body, you're treating a community.
Yeah, I love that. It's so powerful and such an amazing vision to be drawn into.
Yeah,
if people are listening to this and they're like, if people are listening to this and they're like, hey, Kristy, this just sounds fascinating. I want to come and be part of what you're doing, or to learn a bit more about you and your programs and what you do, what you teach people. Where can they find you the best? What's the right place to touch base?
Probably myholisticnurse.org. That's my main website. It's going to be going through some wonderful transformations in the next few months because things are elevating for me as well. So I'm really excited. I'm going to get in there and change some of it. But that's the best place. The contact details are there. So if people have a specific question, they can go to the contact page, fill in the thing, or email me directly. And I would love to talk to people. And if you have any questions, I've got a spring intake coming up soon as well. That starts on the 1st of October for my Heart Warriors Energy Mastery program, which I'm super excited about. That's covering all of this in greater depth and practical tools and techniques that people can use to implement this stuff. I'm all about the practical. It's got to be leverageable and it's got to be practical as far as
it sounds absolutely fantastic. So if someone is interested in that spring intake in October, they can go to your website and get in touch there.
Yeah,
and then I guess if they're listening to this after October, because this might hang around for a while, you're going to do those regularly? Like people could still just touch base through your website and see what's happening there. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I do interview intakes. So it's a half-hour call. So if people are interested in enrolling, they need to talk to me first to make sure we're a right fit for them and that they're a right fit for me. So we do that quarterly, though. I have quarterly programs, so every season. So I'm in the middle of my winter intake at the moment, my winter course, and then spring's coming up, 1st of October, that starts. So if you're interested, you can in the next one, get in touch and book in for an intake interview. But you can do those interviews anytime. It's just a case of letting me know that you want to go further.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing today, Kristy. It's been an amazing journey and so many little bits and pieces of gold in that conversation as well. I think your story is really powerful, but the tips you've also been able to bring forward are really amazing too. So we can kind of hear what you've done and how you got to where you are, and then also learn from some of that experience ourselves as well, which is really fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, look, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you, James. It's really nice to catch up apart from anything else. But whatever I can do to pass on a bit of lightness to everyone I touch, that's really awesome. That's what I'm all about. So thank you for the opportunity.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kristy. We'll see you later.
See ya.